Now, if you were in my classroom, I would do the inevitable and say, what's wrong with the front seats? And make you move forward, but I won't. So welcome. It's really lovely to see so many of you. I think there might be a few more people trickling in as we have our session this evening. It's really lovely to see you all. We're going to look inside the classroom for this session this evening. We're not, a few housekeeping, we're not expecting a fire alarm. If we do, we'll just congregate immediately outside. Please, if you want to get up and grab another tea or coffee or biscuits, please help yourself. The session is going to be recorded. Some of our boarding community would love to be able to see it, probably not at this time for them right now. So we will record. But what we'll do is we'll edit out any of the audience participation. Now that gives you a bit of a clue about your evening that you've just signed up for. Toilets and facilities are straight through there on my right, your left. So for those of you who don't know me, my name's Ronnie Redding. I'm one of the deputy heads. My title is Educational Development, and that's what it's all about this evening, how we develop our education. Joining me this evening are my directors of teaching and learning, who are sat to my right here, and they will be presenting. And our session has 3 parts. 3 directors of teaching and learning, 3 parts. There will be a chance for you to enter in some questions that we'll finish with at a question and answer session. Because we're quite tight on time, the way we thought it would be best to do that is if you scan the QR code, it takes you to something called menti.com, it's a Mentimeter, and there you will immediately go to, have you got any questions? And you can just type your question in there. So as everybody is talking, I will monitor that, and by the end, hopefully be able to collate some of those questions if you have any, and be able to give answers at the end of the session. That's the best way we think of capturing that. So, to frame our evening, let me start with the values, the 3 core values that we have at Abingdon. It runs through everything we do. And indeed, this evening presents itself as an opportunity for us to share teaching and learning approaches with you. Opportunities come in abundance at Abingdon, and I'm sure your sons have perhaps shared some of their experiences. My own son came through Abingdon. He is at the grand age of 24 and just started his job in teaching. My husband's a vicar, I'm a teacher, and he's going to teach RS and theology. So it was kind of the perfect blend. I think we did good. But through his journey at Abingdon, he was 6 foot before he even started, I'm sure. Rugby player, rower. But do you know what? He also wrote spoken word poetry. And who would have known that, I don't know that any other school would have dug deep enough to find that little bit of treasure in him, that he then flourished at becoming a spoken word poet. So I'm sure that this evening you're going to be able to see these things in action, I hope, from some of the clips that we're going to show, and some from the literature that you can see in front of you. But you'll note in front of each of these values, opportunity, respect and excellence, there's a verb, and we talk to our students very much about the importance of making an active, conscious decision to seize opportunities, not to sit there and wait till they come, but to seize opportunities. To foster respect. Sometimes we get it wrong, sometimes we make mistakes. We're developing that way of developing and fostering respect. And the final verb, pursuing excellence. I just want to highlight on that. We are not dealing with students who are the finished product. They are not excellence embodied. I don't know whether you might agree, whether or not they are excellence in tidying their rooms or anything like that. But we are pursuing something. It takes effort. There may be challenges on the way, but they're aiming high. They are in the pursuit of excellence, and that's what we're really encouraging, and I hope you can see in our session this evening. Yes, they spell ore. We are absolutely digging for treasure. We are digging for that bit of treasure in each of our students, in each of your children. And that's what I definitely had as a sense as a parent that happened with my own son. So we're going to dig in, forgive the metaphor. We're going to dig into these three areas. Lucy Moonen, here she is going to talk about how students learn, how we teach, beg your pardon, so how we teach, what we're doing in the classroom. Lucinda is going to talk about how the students are learning and that approach that we're expecting from them. Lucinda, hello. And Rebecca is going to be talking about what you do. We're in partnership. We want to be able to learn from you what you're experiencing at home and perhaps give you a few tips that might hopefully work. So I'm going to ask Lucy, if you'd be kind enough to come and support. Please, if you're coming in, please grab cups of teas and coffees and come on to the front row. Thank you, Lucy. Okay.
Hi, good evening everyone. It's really lovely to see you all. Before I say much more, I'd like to start with a video where different people around our school community have been asked what they like about Abingdon School. The relevance of this, I hope, will become clear in a minute.
I like the pupils in Abingdon School. I think they're all very kind. I think if you fell over, somebody would always pick you up and would always check that you were okay.
Been very involved in kind of learning sport community, and they've made me feel very kind of involved and kind of heard at Abingdon.
The excellent academic support I get outside of my lessons, especially during my A-levels.
Teachers and support staff at Abingdon.
The teachers here are willing to go above and beyond the curriculum.
It's always helped me academically flourish, always making me surpass my goals.
Working with such great colleagues, of course.
It's the collegiality and collaboration between the teachers. We really value each other and lift each other up.
The fact that I like the same things that the people that I teach do.
There's always lots of opportunity for staff and students alike to follow their passion and try out new things.
No matter your background, no matter who you are, there's an opportunity for everyone.
The opportunities that there are to meet new people, be that students or teachers, and just find out more about the world.
Whatever you're interested in, you can find your niche and you can find your tribe.
Many opportunities to explore my own personal interests.
I felt so welcome with the people, the sports, activities. There was lots of opportunities and I've loved every minute of it.
The fact that Abingdon School gives our students the ability and opportunity to collaborate with students from across the wider school community to help everyone develop 21st century workplace skills.
Different learning styles and the different approaches you have to take for different pupils.
You never feel like you're alone, no matter what you're doing.
The comfort that teachers bring the students and the great sort of culture that's created that allows you to thrive in your subjects, sport and other half.
The way every student gets to feel like a valued member of the school.
Students can feel proud for intellectual success and intellectual curiosity.
People can just be themselves, and that's just completely respected by everyone in the year group.
All of our differences are valued and celebrated, and that's why I'm loving life here at Abingdon.
So I actually was not in any way involved in producing that video. I don't know why you didn't ask me. What I thought when I first watched it was how amazing it was, because everything that the people in there say is different, and yet somehow it is also coherent. It also comes together. They use different words to describe quite a common sentiment. So they use words like being heard, or finding your tribe, or feeling welcome, or feeling valued. And I think it really adds up to a sense that we are all different, and yet we are one thriving community. And it's this kind of feeling that we really want to focus on this evening and to think about in our classroom practice, so that we perpetuate this sentiment through our teaching and that we make it even stronger for our students who've just joined us and for our students joining us in 2026 and beyond. So how we do that, both in theory and in practice, is what I'd really like to delve into now. And I will be sharing with you some real live classroom footage so that you can have a peek, if you like, behind the curtain at what we're trying to do. So, to go a bit theoretical initially, really when we talk about that notion of feeling like you belong and you're part of a whole, even where we have different interests and different strengths, the word for that is relatedness. And relatedness in something you see behind me called the Thrive Pyramid is a key part of pupils' development alongside autonomy and competence. And we know that with autonomy and competence, which perhaps have been more traditional, explicit focuses of teaching and curriculum design in schools, the three together are extremely important. When we think about relatedness and that sense that you have things in common with those around you, this is something that we can help to boost in our teaching rather than keeping it for one-off or special events, special occasions. People quite often think that something like relatedness is the same as relationships, and it's actually subtly different. We all need strong relationships. We need strong relationships in our lives, with our family, with our friends, with our teachers. It's extremely important. But we also need relatedness, because when we're in a big organisation, we can't know everybody individually. We can't have a strong relationship with hundreds of other students or tens of other colleagues. But what we can have is a sense that despite not knowing them all personally, we have common values. We have things in common that we share as a community. For this to happen, it's really important that when we teach, our students feel seen and heard. It made me really happy when I heard the word heard in that video, and that they feel that in their classrooms, their teachers hear them, listen to them, and that their peers are doing the same thing. When we have these three elements together then of competence, autonomy, and relatedness, we can expect that pupils really feel that they belong in their school, that it is their school. And as a result, we see two things happen in tandem. One is academic success, and the other is a flourishing sense of well-being. We get both hand in hand. Now, it might sound really easy to cultivate a sense of being seen and heard in lessons, but unfortunately, as with all things teaching, it's actually deceptively complicated. Classroom teaching involves myriad tiny decisions and constant small but meaningful interactions between all of the people in the classroom. So an aim of the talk today is to try and pull back the curtain and help you to kind of read some of those theories and decisions that teachers might be making moment to moment in their everyday teaching, and in so doing, how they're trying to simultaneously cultivate both academic excellence alongside a really strong sense of belonging and a feeling that we all are seen and heard in the classroom. That, in a nutshell, is really why the Teaching and Learning team here at Abingdon exist. We exist to try and make some of the invisible things visible. We work primarily with our colleagues, many of whom have become so expert in what they do day to day that quite a lot of it has become automated. Quite a lot of it is really well synthesized. And by presenting them with some of the latest research, by observing them and giving them feedback, encouraging them to do the same in other people's classrooms, we hope that we can sort of bring to light different aspects of their practice, show them their own strengths, and encourage them perhaps to add or modify it even further. I'll be trying to give you some examples of what that might look like in practice when we actually see some of the classroom teaching. And we'll pull out some of the things that if we were observing a lesson, we might talk about. So this is the kind of philosophy that we'd like to share with you today. I am therefore going to give you two key pieces of theory that I hope you might bear in mind and try and deploy when you are watching the classroom clips. I make no apology for the theory. I love a bit of teaching and learning theory, but I hope it's all right quite late on a Monday for you. The first one relates to what schools often talk about when they talk about oracy. So traditionally, when we've talked about oracy in schools, we've tended to mean learning to speak. And that's fine. Learning to speak is a very, very important part of education. It's necessary to be able to talk in a variety of contexts in your professional and personal life. So that's absolutely an important meaning of the word oracy. However, when we think about how we teach and how our students learn and feel seen and heard by us, there's a second meaning to the word oracy. And that meaning is learning by speaking. How is it that our students can verbalise their thoughts in such a way that we as teachers can listen, provide them with feedback, build on them, and also that their peers can take part in meaningful dialogue and conversation? So when I talk about verbalisation, that is my word for learning by speaking. That is what we're trying to talk about. We know from recent research how important these kind of purposeful classroom dialogues are. We know that learning by speaking is really necessary. I've put a summary of the research study that I reference up there in your handouts, which I really hope you'll find interesting when you have a chance to read it. Essentially, the Sediver and Sedlacek study takes us one step further in understanding that purposeful classroom dialogue is really important for students because it contrasts students who are engaged and take part in opportunities to speak with students who are engaged but remain silent. And what the study suggests is that those students who are engaged and take part in opportunities to speak are the ones that do the best academically. When we twin it with our belonging theory, we also know that they're likely to feel seen and heard within their classroom. So for us, it's a win-win, and that's why we're really keen for that to happen. The second piece of theory that I'll give you, and that we'll try to apply in a minute, is called ratio. Ratio, in a nutshell, is the idea that we want to design our questioning and our tasks in a way that mean the largest number of students are thinking as hard as possible. So that basically means we want them to be where that pink blob is in the top right. And this is a lens that we can use as we look at classroom activities, the design of tasks. How are we thinking about it so that we've got maximum students engaged, thinking as much as they can? So those are the pieces of theory. When I was designing this, I then thought, okay, great, we'll have covered the theory, and then we'll just need to talk about the sort of things we do to make that theory happen. Amazing. I sat down and started trying to write a list, and I rapidly realized that it was going to be a very long list. It was going to take me probably hours. Even when I had completed it, it was not going to be an exhaustive list. And so instead, I scrapped that list and I tried to do a 60-second challenge list. And in the 60 seconds, I came up with 12 things. And the 12 things are on the very beautiful word cloud behind me. I am not sure that, I haven't missed something. And if you see something that you'd like to ask me about at the end, or you've got another idea that I have missed, please do come and talk to me about it. But I hope at least it gives you an idea that once we understand the theory, we've then got lots of choices to make in our classroom about how we bring it about. Probably a better way than this word cloud is, as I said, for you to see some actual teaching. So that is what we're going to do next. However, I am only interested in doing this if I can get the highest possible ratio in the room. So what that means is, as many of you have to think about it, and you have to think about it as hard as possible. And my vehicle for trying to bring that about is something that we do all the time in classrooms, and it's called a think, pair, share. Okay? So, first of all, we'll watch the videos, and you will think about what kind of choices have the teacher made that try to give a sense of the students feeling seen and heard, while simultaneously developing academic challenge. Then, when you've watched the video, you will have a chance to talk to some of the people around you about your thoughts. And finally comes everyone's least favourite part, which is the share part, when I would really love to hear any of your thoughts about what you've seen, anything that you've reflected on or drawn out. I will also then share with you my notes, which are the sort of notes that if we were observing a lesson, we would typically take, and we might then share with our colleagues as part of our trying to make the invisible visible for them. Right, I hope that made sense. If you were a class, I would need an encouraging thumbs up at this point, but I'm going to take it as given. So I will show you this first clip, which comes from a sixth form maths lesson.
To think about and try to draw on the same graph what you think cosec x will look like. Okay, that's 1 over sine x. Okay, what would that look like?
Is it going to be like this? It's going to be, we're going to have 1.
Okay, try to draw on your thing what 1 over sine x is going to look like.
1 over 0 is 1 over 1 is going to be 1. Yeah, it's going to be. 1 over 0 is 1 and 0.
We are approaching in the right way, thinking about specific points. That's good. Think about specific points.
That might not be right. 1 over that.
1 over like 60.
I don't know what.
What's going to happen at this point?
Is it going to go like? Is it going to go like that?
What happens when it's 0?
It's 1 over 0.
Which is?
Can you do that?
No, so what's going to be there?
Nothing.
Okay, and what do we call
Oh, asymptote.
a line on a graph? Those look beautiful. It does. Okay, we got some really nice looking things here. Okay, we've got asymptotes, a lot of us, at the places where sine x crosses the x-axis. So when x is 0, because we'd have something over 0, which doesn't really work, does it? So we've got asymptotes there. We've noticed that at 1 and at -1, it's the same. Okay. Good. Most of them look really good. See if you can do the same for cos now. So draw the cos graph. See if you can draw 1 over cos. Or sec x. Yeah, they are important. We're going to draw them nicely in our book at the end. Okay, cos hopefully will be fairly straightforward. Then you can think about tan and cot. Once you've done, when you're happy and you want me to check cos.
I think it's just a shift in cosine, yeah.
Which would make sense, right?
Yeah, because like it's size.
Yeah.
So that's just 1 of the costs.
Yeah, lovely. Really nice. Yeah, really nice. Okay, if you're happy with that, have a go at tan. Tan is a bit trickier. If you're happy with your cos, then try tan. Okay, what's going to happen at these points where it crosses? At 0?
It can't.
Okay, so what are we going to have there?
Asymptote.
Asymptotes. We're going to have vertical asymptotes at those points because we can't have any of our new graphs.
Thinking about those two aspects, how is it both academically challenging to work in this way, and how does it also mean that students are taking active part in their classroom, feeling seen and heard? So I'll just give you a minute or so to have a quick chat. Right, thank you so much. I wish I'd had more time because I was just saying to the ladies over there that I get to see quite a lot of lessons, and it's really interesting to hear what jumps out at you. Very interesting. Suzanne, you had an observation that you started off with. Yeah, and your use of the word problem solving, I think, is also quite accurate there in that sense of helping them to stay on track, but encouraging them to work at it. Yeah, very much so. I agree with you. And it is interesting and skillful, the way of sort of keeping it on track, monitoring, making sure that the conversation remains productive, that you support enough, but that you don't over support. Yeah, to get that kind of atmosphere. So thank you.
Maybe one. Yeah.
Yes, you're right. And for us, we would also say that then adds to a kind of mental schema of knowledge, because through that thinking, you also attach it to other things that you already understand. So yes, absolutely. Yes, absolutely. And there are some things actually that help to facilitate that. Particularly actually the use of mini whiteboards so that they can have a go and then rub it out and have another go. As well as the kind of language that my colleague Tori is using, that we language that you talked about, the kind of language that makes you feel like it wouldn't be a disaster if you got it wrong. On the screen behind me are the sort of things that I would feed back had I observed that lesson. Obviously, I'm not going to go through them all now, but if there's anything you see there that is of interest, please let me know. the high ratio that we talked about, that they're all involved, and that there's a lot of thinking going on distributed around the room. It's not just a small number of people. The positive error climate, which is something that you were touching upon. I particularly liked it when she said, we'll draw a neat version on paper later, i.e., right now, getting it perfect doesn't matter. That's not what we're doing right now. We're working on it. When I think about other things that Tori, the teacher in question, did, that gradual intervention to sort of support sufficiently but not give the answer away, as you were talking about, there's a kind of scale there from a prompt, which might just be sort of pointing at the right thing, through to giving a little clue. And we didn't see her need to model or correct. She didn't need to go to those phases to help them. And finally, something that we call high challenge, low threat. And that, again, is part of that language that we were just talking about. So, for example, the way that she says that if you're happy with that, have a go at the next one. It's a bit trickier. And that kind of signals that it is harder. I know it's harder. That's okay. We'll have a go at it. So, again, it gives that combination of academic rigour while also feeling part of something, feeling part of a whole. I'll show you one quite different clip now, which is at GCSE. And then that will be everything from our classroom content. But if anyone would like to talk about it later, that would be great. So, clip number 2, same thing, think, pair, share.
You get the word in front of you, okay? You then describe it to the person. This used to actually be a reality game on TV. Like, you'd call in, and these are the 2 TV presenters. What's his name? Like, you know, Richard Madeley or something. And you'd have to describe what you see on the TV without saying the word. And then if they guessed like 20 points, you'd get 20 grand or something like that. You guys are not going to get 20 grand, I'm afraid, okay? As much as you'd like it. So, if this was my first one, if you were describing this to me without saying the word Lenin, Vito, how would you describe the word Lenin to me without saying Lenin? Leader of the Bolsheviks. Easy. Okay, number yourselves, number 1 and 2, please. Off you go. Okay, number 1's face the board. Number 2's turn around, please. Yeah. So this is kind of like keywords. You obviously cannot say the name of the person or the thing or the event on the board. I'll give you about 15, 20 seconds for each one. I'll be ready. Just nod, grunt, something. Okay, all right, thank you. Here we go. Next one. Okay, good.
Absolutely. We have a phrase, low stakes testing, but I was reading an article the other day that was saying we really need to replace that with no stakes testing, because something like that is no stakes, and that's actually, as you say, really important for that particular activity to check that they've understood and to get them feeling comfortable at the beginning of a lesson. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Yeah, so that sense of belonging is just natural. It's just happening because they want to take part and they're enjoying it. Absolutely. I've got a few sort of things, and they're pretty similar to the sorts of things that you have drawn out. I've again got my ratio lens on and gone, that's really interesting. You could have just put the keyword on the board and then gone, Tom, what does that mean? And then you would have known that Tom knows what it means. But actually, what Nick then does, the teacher in question, when they get going, is he starts to circulate, just like you saw Tori doing. So great, now he knows that 12 kids know what that means. So immediately he's raised the ratio and his own awareness of where their learning is at by designing it in that particular way. So that's important. And we also talked in some of the conversations over here about that sense of activating prior learning, as you were talking about linking new and old learning, that they can go on to a knowledge acquisition phase having done this retrieval first. Thank you so much for participating in a bit of a think, pair, share. I'll hand over to my other colleagues, but I will be around afterwards. Thank you.
Thank you, Lucy, so very much. Again, if you've got any questions, you want to use the QR code, please do. I'm going to hand over to Lucinda. I'm mindful that we might be running maybe 10 minutes over, but I hope you can bear with us. If you do need to leave, please just if you need to at half past.
Right, so I'm going to talk a little bit about learning to learn and sort of really what happens in the process of learning in the classroom. So I think Lucy's talked a lot to this, and it's really about that sense of high expectations, but that low threat environment. So this is really what we want for our students. Now, learning is a journey. We make errors, we make mistakes, and the key thing is that every time we make a mistake, we learn from it. And this is really, really important in kind of helping our children in our classrooms to move forward in their learning. So one of the ways that we can do this is really, if we make a mistake, we really need to think about that mistake. We can't just kind of brush it like I did, stick it in the back of my file, I haven't done very well, I'm never going to look at that again. We really need to get our students thinking about the mistakes that they've made and and processing that. And in teaching, we call this metacognition. Now, if you want to know what metacognition means, we can go back to its stem and we can look at the word cognition, and that means thinking, and we can look at the word meta, which means self-referential. So what we get is thinking about thinking. Now, if I come to you and I say to you, tell me, have you done some thinking about your thinking in the last week? Well, it's a bit difficult to measure, it's a bit difficult to understand. So we've actually come up with a much better definition, well, the Education Endowment Fund have, and they've said the learner's ability to be aware of, reflect on, and direct their thinking. And this makes it much easier for us to, guide them, say, rather than saying, right, today we're going to do some thinking about thinking, it helps us to give questions and direct that. So, because I'm a psychologist, I love to do an experiment, so here is part 2 of the participation. You are going to do an experiment. What you're going to see is on the board is a picture. It's going to appear for about 10 seconds. It's not going to be long enough. You're going to feel quite stressed and quite annoyed with me. There's going to be some annoying background music as well. And then on the screen will appear 4 images. You have to decide which of the 4 images the first one matches. Are we ready? Okay. So the thing is with this is that hopefully you went into that second one feeling like you had a strategy, feeling a little bit less stressed in that 10 seconds. And we find that that's exactly what happens if we put students into a high pressure situation, like an exam. But before that, we have done some of this metacognitive questioning. And in the study that I'm referring to, Chen et al. In 2017, this is precisely what they did. And when they asked them these questions, they compared 2 groups, one that had the questions and one that didn't. They found that you get an increase in self-reflection, an increase in sense of control, so that's kind of well-being, and an increase in exam performance. And then you also get a decrease in stress and negative mood. So we can see for lots of reasons that this metacognitive questioning can help. But what we also know is that students make mistakes. They get things wrong, and for lots and lots of really good reasons, because we're human and we are fallible. And one of the things, well, we're going to talk about 2 ways that students get things wrong, and then thinking about how metacognitive questioning might help them. So the first one is one that you probably, as parents, certainly I have got 3, not teenage sons anymore, they're actually kind of older, but we've been through the whole A-level process. And this is what happens in my household. We've got a moment now, and we've got an exam in a week's time. And they're going, yeah, I need to do 2 hours of revision the day before my exam. And I'm like going, really? But that's where they're at. They're thinking that's how much revision I need to do. What they actually need to do is 6 hours of revision, probably spread out over the 6-7 days before their exam. And what happens is the day before their exam, when they sit down to do their revision, suddenly all hell breaks loose because they've realised they haven't got enough time, they need to talk to their teachers, they don't understand something, they can't find the right resources, etc. This is known as the planning fallacy. We really underestimate the amount of time that any given job will take. And if you have had any building work done in your house, you will know exactly what the planning fallacy is. So that's one way that students get it wrong. The other way, and this is possibly my favourite piece of psychological research in education, is done by Rudiger and Karpicki in 2006. And they took 3 groups of students. We're going to focus on 2 of the groups because they kind of illustrate what I'm talking about. So all of the students were given a piece of text to read about sea otters. They had to read it. And one group had to read it through 4 times. That's all they had to do. They had to read. They were given 7-minute blocks with 5-minute breaks. Read it through, break, read it through, break, read it through, and so on. The pink group that you can see up there, they were asked to read it through for 7 minutes, and then they were given 7 minutes to recall as much as they could. Just write it on a piece of paper. That piece of paper was thrown away. They had to recall as much as they could, throw it away, recall as much as they could, thrown away. The middle group was a kind of halfway house. At the end of that block of learning, they were then asked, how confident do you feel that in a week's time, you're going to remember that information? The the students that had read it through 4 times, they're like, yeah, totally, I've nailed it. I'm going to remember it all in a week's time. The group that had been asked to recall it 3 times, they're like, oh my goodness, I have no idea. 5 minutes after this, we find that the group that had read it through a number of times, absolutely, they had nailed it. They had done really well in the test that they were given, and the group that had had to do the retrieval, they had to recall it, not so much. They were then pulled back into the lab a week later, and they were tested again. And this is where it gets really interesting. What we find is the group that had read and reread it, who were absolutely confident that they knew their stuff, had forgotten over half of what they had recalled in the first test. The group that said, no way am I going to remember it, had forgotten a fraction of that. So this tells us 2 really important things. One is revision needs to be active, and I know that Rebecca's going to talk a little bit to that later on. But the second thing is that learning, when it feels easy, when it feels like we've learned a lot, it probably means we haven't learned very much at all. Learning is hard, it's complicated, it's messy, and when we do things that help us learn, we usually feel like we haven't learned anything. This is known as the illusion of fluency, and students fall foul of it the whole time. So we need to encourage them to think about how they're learning, what they're doing, and if they're doing the right things. One of the ways that we do this at Abingdon in the classroom all the time is through the 4 R's. Now this poster is in all classrooms, so if you go into any classroom, you should see it on the wall. It asks the students, whenever they get feedback from a test or a piece of work, they can think about, well, what did my teachers say that I've done well? Okay, what did I do to get there? What am I going to do next? And this can make them think about, did I fall foul of that planning fallacy? Did I use flashcards and was it really effective? Did I just read my notes? Is this going to help me? So we can use these metacognitive questions. I mean, as I say, this is just one way, but we can use them throughout our teaching in the classroom to help our students really think about their learning. So think about their thinking, but in a much more strategic and directed way. I'm now going to hand over to...
Thank you very much, Lucinda. Absolutely. Yeah, by the way, I got all of those things wrong twice, and you all got them right, so I'm very impressed. Excellent. I think we're going to keep roughly to time. I'm going to invite Rebecca. She is going to now talk to you about how you do some of the work with us on our final session. So we should finish on time.
Good evening. So I'm here to talk to you about homework, routines and sleep, which might sound like pretty ordinary, straightforward things that you're all on board with, but the partnership between us at school and you at home is really, really critical for getting this right. So let's start with homework. So normally when I mention homework in a class, there's a collective groan of sighs from the children. And as a parent myself, I know how sometimes homework can turn into a bit of a battleground. But I think it really helps to understand the purpose of homework and why we set homework. And this is where something called the forgetting curve, which is behind me, comes into action. So it was developed by a researcher called Ebbinghaus, who basically found that human beings are really good at forgetting things. And I think we can all appreciate that when we forget things that we need to do all the time. On average, he found that we forget about 90% of what we learn within 7 days of having learnt it, which for the teachers in the room is a little bit of a depressing fact. But this is where homework is really powerful, because by revisiting material soon after it's been covered in a lesson, students can strengthen the neural connections and make it less likely that that knowledge slips away. In other words, homework isn't just extra work, but it's a key tool to stop the forgetting curve from happening and from undoing all that hard work that we put in lessons. It offers an opportunity to either pre-visit or revisit material from lessons, and it's an important part of reinforcing memory, which I'll come back to in a minute. Okay. As Lucinda mentioned, we like to think about how we can help our students learn at home, and often homework involves learning for tests. And here research into how memory works tells us that spacing out practice over time is far more effective than cramming. So not only is the type of revision that we do important, like Lucinda mentioned, also how we do that revision, how we spread it out. It's really, really important. So a simple analogy is, imagine that you have a penny, and you take your penny and you go and bury it somewhere in your garden. And in a year's time, you're going to need to come back and dig up that penny. Now, if you went to visit your penny every so often, every week, every month, and kind of brush aside the weeds and clean the moss off where your penny is hidden, then when you needed to go back to it in a year's time, it would be pretty easy to find where your penny was because you've been regularly. If you hid your penny in the garden and then just left it there for a whole year and then tried to go back to find it, then it would be really, really difficult to find that penny. And learning works in the same way. So if we come back to topics regularly, even very briefly, then we're brushing aside those metaphorical weeds and we're learning, keeping that memory accessible in our brains. So that's why little and often revision, as you can see on this slide here, is more powerful than cramming for 30 minutes the night before the test. So we really encourage you to help your children to spread out any learning homework that they have to do. This is also one of the reasons why our Other Half programme is so important, because it allows spacing to happen naturally as part of the school day. When we do Other Half activities, we're giving the students' brains a chance to rest and process some of that information. And also encourages that sense of belonging, which is so important to our school community and what Lucy talked about earlier. So we really strongly recommend that pupils do their homework on the night it's set. And they will have heard this message from me and Mr. Jenkins many times over, particularly in the lower school. And that's not just us being strict, there's real science behind it, which comes back to this idea of the forgetting curve. So as you can see, the sooner that you come back to new material, the more of that material that you're going to remember. If you tackle homework on the night it's set, then most of that information is going to be fresh in your mind. So it makes homework easier and more effective because it reinforces what you just learned. If you leave it all to the weekend, then a lot of that detail will have faded because of the forgetting curve. The longer you leave it, the more you forget. And so it can be much harder to make a start on that task because you've forgotten what you were supposed to be doing. There's also the practical side of that. We all know that if we leave all our work until Sunday afternoon, then we have a mountain of homework to do all in one go, and we really don't recommend that. On a practical note, I know there are quite a lot of new to the school parents here tonight. So in terms of organisation, we use a website called Scheduler. Scheduler is where you can find your son's timetable. It has all the subjects that they have every day, but importantly from a homework perspective, it has a small p in brackets. So you can see some of the subjects have a small p in brackets. That indicates that homework should be set by the teacher on that evening. Lower school also has a simplified version of this, which Mr. Jenkins has kindly prepared on Firefly, and we encourage them to stick that inside their lower school planners as well. So they should have a copy of which homework is being set on which evening. We would encourage you to put that up somewhere at home, maybe on a notice board or on your fridge. Oh, excellent. Well done, guys. In terms of the what, so that's the when, the what the homework is, for first year, second year, fifth year and sixth form, all that information can be found on Firefly at the moment. Homework for third and fourth years is on Showbie, and you can use the calendar function to organise all of that. I think helping your child as they transition to secondary school with these routines and these systems can be really important for building their confidence and getting into the right routines with homework. We also, this is a more practical thing, we also really encourage our students to keep all of their books in their lockers at school, bringing only the books that they need for homework home with them in the evening. The The reasons for this are twofold. So firstly, we don't want them carrying around all their books, all their worldly possessions in a big heavy rucksack, because that's not good for their developing backs. And secondly, it means that if they forget a book at home, it's only 1 or 2 books. It's not all the books that they own. Obviously, having none of the books that they need for the day would be really, really disruptive to their learning. So if you can help with reinforcing that message, keep your books at school, only bring the ones that you need for homework home. If your child is struggling with homework, please encourage them to email the teacher. The teachers are here to help. We don't want to think of our students sitting at home getting stressed and upset over not being able to do homework. And especially in lower school, we say that homework shouldn't be taking any longer than 30 minutes per piece of homework. So if that's happening on a regular basis, that it's taking much longer than that, then we would encourage you to contact either their head of house or their tutor. Routines. So routines are really important. Now, they can sound like a really boring thing to have a routine, but actually, in terms of cognitive science, routines help up to free our working memory. So our working memory has limited capacity for information. And if we can free up some of that space, then that's really helpful. So having a set time and a set place for doing homework means your brain can stop worrying about the when and the where of homework and just get on with the what of homework. Ideally, I think we all know that homework should be done in a quiet space, but not every home has the luxury of that. So, you know, somewhere at a dining room table is absolutely fine. We would say it would be best to avoid working in bed itself, because bed should be associated with sleep and not with stress and homework. We know from recent research that background noise is a factor in being able to concentrate. So research shows that having the TV on, I'm sorry guys, no TV, and music, even music with lyrics, whether you like that music or not, has an impact on your concentration. The exception to that would be if you're working in a really busy space, if there are a lot of siblings around, people cooking the dinner in the background, then that can mean it's harder to concentrate. So in which case you might want to put on some headphones. Noise-cancelling headphones would be the best, or music with no lyrics, like classical music. It's kind of second best. And then I'm going to finish up by talking about sleep, which I'm sure you'll be very pleased to know. So we often hear that teenagers need 8 to 10 hours of sleep. But we actually, from recent research, know that this is closer to 9 to 10 hours. And I know there are quite a lot of parents here from younger children. Those are more likely to be closer to the 10-hour sleep than they are the 8 hours sleep. Because 8 hours sleep is not really enough for growing and learning adolescents. Sleep is when our memory is consolidated, so learning is consolidated, short-term memories are put into our long-term memory, and it's also where our body physically restores itself, so the immune system repairs itself, etc. All those things are really important for being healthy and happy at school. Thirdly, and most probably relevant to those of us who have teenagers at home, sleep has a huge impact on their mood. And research shows that sleep-deprived people are more likely to remember negative experiences than they are positive experiences. There's a really good book about this. It's called Why We Sleep by Matthew Walker, if anyone is interested. And it describes a study they did where recall was in sleep-deprived students. They remembered 40% less information, and the information that they did remember was skewed towards the negative. So when a teenager is sleep-deprived, they don't just feel tired, they literally see the world in a more negative light, which obviously has huge implications for well-being and resilience. So I'll finish up with another piece of recent research into sleep, and this is to do with electronic devices. I'm sensing that these people over here are probably not going to be as happy with me about this, but research recently has shown that for every electronic device in a child's bedroom, other than a lamp, they lose on average 1 hour of sleep per night. So if you've got a phone, a laptop, a TV, etc. in the bedroom, then that's all adding up to, on average, 3-4 hours less sleep every night. So all the research is telling us that the most important thing that you can do for your child is to encourage them to get a good night's sleep. Encourage them to keep their phones out of the bedroom at bedtime and prioritise that 9 to 10 hours of sleep. We know that homework and routines are really important, and we really appreciate your support with those things. But sleep is something that's the foundation that underpins everything that we do as a school. So thank you very much.
I'm going to ask for a round of applause for the details. Thank you so very much indeed. That was fantastic. I've had a couple of questions then. One was around notes. Yeah, do teachers notice when students are getting distracted? I've been teaching for 20-something, 6 years. I think the biggest distraction is always when it snows, isn't it? But this question was around tech and whether they're distracted, whether we're noticing them being distracted perhaps by a YouTube clip or something on their device. I would hope that teachers would. I mean, some of the modelling that we've talked about is, you know, walking around the classroom and seeing. It's helped greatly when a device is flat on the table. You can see much more easily what's going on when a laptop has a back to it. I would hope that the more the IT are on it, they are blocking YouTube. They currently, I've just been talking to the head of digital technology, and they are doing a workaround. Students are so clever, aren't they, at finding workarounds on things. And he is currently this week saying that they are working on a way of locking that down. I think the most important thing is, if this is something that you know is happening, please let the tutor know that, and you can do that so that your child doesn't feel awkward. But if that is something that's happening, let the tutor know so that we can then follow it up if it's becoming something that's an issue. Another question that came through was, how do you motivate students who are relying on that dopamine kick to get engaged in studying? I'm going to ask Lucinda to talk to this one. Thank you.
Having had 3 sons, I've got one left. I've got 1 year. So motivating them through has been quite challenging. If we think about motivation, we've got 2 types of motivation. We've got intrinsic motivation and extrinsic motivation. Extrinsic motivation is about reward. It's about the external rewards. The intrinsic motivation is about feeling good about yourself. I'm doing something to feel good about myself. Now, sometimes students, they're not going to get immediately, they're not going to see the intrinsic motivation, not going to do this thing that's called study that is like they think is really dull, because they don't see the reward in it. And like when you've immediately I've got a test in a week and I've got the Xbox here. So, things that I've tried based on the kind of research that I have read. My favourite with my children is the 3-minute rule. Is like you have to sit down and you have to do 3 minutes and then you see where you go. Now, there's some neuropsychology behind this, where what happens when you sit down to do a tough task, you get a hit of adrenaline. Yay, I'm really excited, I'm going to tidy my desk. For me, that's what I do. I'm like 15 minutes of desk tidying and I haven't done the thing I need to do. If you can sit there for 3 minutes, then what happens is you get a hormone, a neurotransmitter called acetylcholine kicking in, and that allows you to concentrate and focus. So then you can get down to the task. So if you can get them to do 3 minutes, they are likely to then be able to go on and do more, because they'll recognise, actually, there is value in what I'm doing, and I'm kind of locked in. Good phrase, apparently. That's what everyone, we're going to get really locked in, Mum. So they will get into the task and get going. So that might be one way. The other way to think about it is thinking about actually physical things that they can see the progress they're making. So we, like throughout my time as a parent trying to get my kids to do revision, we've tried all sorts of things. Planning is really good. Literally having a to-do list that you can cross off is really good. We've had marbles in a jar, and I say that, I've used that with my 20-year-old son doing his uni revision, right? That really helped him. He's like, a jar, I've got to get my marbles from one jar to another jar. So every time I've done a chapter, a marble moves over, and you can see the physical progress. And at the end, he had a different kind of reward than you might give your children, but at the end of the day, he might, he would reward himself. So thinking about how can we give them those extrinsic motivators, which they will then learn. There's an enormous amount of intrinsic motivation, so it will come into that kind of intrinsic motivation in the end, because they will start to think, actually, I'm really proud of myself because I've just done like all my revision and I've nailed the test, and it really helped. And it goes back to that metacognitive questioning of like, oh yeah, look, you did that thing that you didn't want to do, and look how well it turned out. Remember to do that next time. So you can then call back, you can kind of cycle back to, oh, we did that last time, let's do it again because it worked and you felt really pleased. So I hope that helps answer. There are loads of other things, but I'm sure I can, if you want to come and speak more.
Thank you, Lucinda. The last one that we had was related to distractions. So, you know, if your child has been given something like a video to watch for a piece of homework and they're watching that on their phone and writing up notes, how can you avoid them being distracted by other things on their phone? I guess we don't give unsupervised tech use in school. Maybe that's kind of something that you could consider at home. Just being present when they're looking at something, ensuring, okay, this is homework time now, and you're looking at that video, and just kind of, I know it's very difficult, we have very busy lives, don't we, whether or not we can look over our children. But I don't know whether there's advice that you might have for each other. It might be something that you've come across that you think, oh, I do this, somebody's nodding, I don't know whether there's something that you can share, that tips that you have and advice for avoiding those distractions. I think there are some, I've got a really good friend in Ukraine, and he's been developing this lockdown for phones and some parental permissions on phones. I don't know how far some of those things have got to.
The school community.
Thank you very much indeed. We are around. Please come and talk to us if there are anything else that you would like to talk about. Encourage other people. Our next session, we've got a couple of sessions coming up. One much more around support strategies for children with SEND, and then looking at coaching techniques to use with your children, and support for exam times, and what kind of thing that we put in place that we can partner with you on. So thank you very much indeed for your time this evening.